Welcome to Hey Dad Podcast. Real dads, tough issues, and a genuine love for a fatherless generation.
Okay, guys, so we want to continue the conversation. We really covered the Jesus Revolution movie. Chris actually experienced it firsthand, even down to living in a commune and that whole lifestyle. And we started asking about his experience, where it came from, where he was living. What makes it so interesting is just so strange. You know, and it just trips me out that you guys.
You're Rick Rivera, by the way.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So
I'm Rick Rivera. Yeah, that too. So this is far more interesting than that. No, but and it's just so interesting. And I thought, man, what an opportunity! We got one of those dudes right here among us. Let's tap his brain and let's.
Different kind of rock star.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I'll be honest though. See, we've been going to church together for 21 years. And there's a group of you guys. There's like 3 or 4 of you guys.
Yeah.
And I've always sat back and thought, you dudes are weird, man.
I was going to say, hey, why don't you start one? Huh?
Yeah, I know.
You know how to do it.
But so that's an interesting thing. But so the movie covers a revival that happened in the late 60s, early 70s. Mm-hmm. And what really came of it is a lot of people who were buying into a countercultural way. I would say a counterfeit love and peace movement. Just came in and they found God in a real way. And it brought other people who did not come from that, but still, like, it was a real movement, huh?
Right.
Yeah. Right. With that being said, living on a commune and you're a Christian, what are the good things about that?
Well, the fellowship.
Yeah.
You know, everybody being sold out to a single purpose, and that is to preach the gospel. As much as we possibly can with every day, every waking moment, and everything that we do. Yeah. Everybody should have the experience of living that sold out, where that's the only thing I care about. I don't care about my personal ambition, what becomes of me. It's about getting the news and releasing all your creativity into that mission, into that purpose, and that purpose alone. So I remember a year or so before I came into the gospel outreach commune system, I read The Lord of the Rings. Mm-hmm. You know, now nobody will ever read The Lord of the Rings again because the movies are too good and they're too easy.
Right.
So, but if you ever did, you would be a blessed person to never see that movie and pick up Tolkien's books and read it.
They're great.
Because what it did with me is it gave me a window into a quest. Those characters, the movie plays it slightly different, but in the book, those characters are given over to a quest for the higher good, to get rid of that evil ring.
Yeah.
And even though they knew that they would not partake of the rewards of a life without this evil in it, they gave themselves to it.
Just
and
totally
that set something in my head.
Yeah.
It put something in my head. My antenna was always up for that. Now, it doesn't mean I was a sucker waiting to be taken advantage of. It's meant that I wanted that. I want that for my life. I don't want to be, a 9-to-5er just looking to play in the weekends on the bowling club like the Flintstones or something, I want something, my life to become something relevant that means something. I didn't know what that was. So when the time came where this whole movement of this Jesus Revolution was taking place, and my sister was involved, and I got close enough to it to peek in, lean over the enclosure, and fell into the pen, like the gorilla exhibit.
Yeah.
Now there's no way I can get out. And I realized that the best thing was that we all believe this. We all believe that Christ is coming.
Right.
Guys that came from every different background. Some came from very wealthy backgrounds. Some came from dirt poor. Some would not really survive well out in the world, but inside this cocoon, sharing this vision with one another, they rose to be some of the giants in the house.
Wow.
And the proof of that is that when the movement kind of was over with and everybody sort of melted back into their life's assigned spots, many of these giants in the house occupied very humble spots out in the world.
But in that environment,
yeah, in that environment, we're all brothers. We're all just melted together. In fact, it's funny because anything of wealth got ripped off in the house that we were living in because we had so many people just coming through. So all the girls eventually looked the same. They all had these kind of hippie, long, flowing hippie dresses that nobody would want to rip off. All their fashion accessories were taken away. Wow. All they had going for them was a spirit. And I can remember to this day being asleep in my bunk in the brothers' dorm, and the sisters would come through singing, "Today is the day,"
Wasn't it, "This is the day"?
Yeah, this is the day that the Lord has made, that the Lord has, playing tambourines and just these sweet sister voices waking us up. And they had been awake for an hour and a half before us, preparing the whole meal for the house. And then we'd all come together, we'd all share, we'd all go into a Bible study and just talk about the Lord and worship. And then we'd all go off to our different various jobs that we used to support the home. And that it was like that every day. And then when we came home in the evening, that's when the gold was, because that's when the creativity would boil over and we'd figure out how can we present the gospel. I remember we were in Pasadena, North Pasadena, and the New Year was coming up and all the people were camped up and down Colorado Boulevard, right? And so we tried to think of roles that we could play and costumes we could make to get out and spread the gospel. And spread these little chick tracks. There used to be these little cartoon tracks.
Chick tracks, yeah.
Yeah, they were great.
They were all over the place, those things.
Yeah, and it was to encounter people and just tell them that Jesus loves them and that he's available, And I remember I dressed in an old 30s newsboy. Read all about it, headline here, God comes back, saves souls, come on, We all played these different parts.
Perfect for you.
And it was a blast, to give yourself to that. I just felt God's joy and his smile on his lips watching us. And some of the things were contrived. Some of the things we did were just kind of lame.
Yeah.
But the real gold of it was taking this bright lamp that was now burning in my heart and bringing that out into the public and taking the lampshade off.
Yeah.
Let it be seen by people. Because that's what drew people in.
Okay, I remember, I don't know where I saw it. I saw a picture of you as a young man dressed as Jesus.
Yeah.
In a little loincloth. Yeah. What was that? Was that during that time?
Yeah. That was when I was on the way home. One year we decided to stage a crucifixion on Hollywood Boulevard.
Oh my God!
We did it a couple places, but Hollywood Boulevard is probably the one with the photos that you're thinking about. And maybe I can send the photos to.
Yeah, it'd be nice if we could put the photos
up because I was a much smaller man at that time. But we did the whole thing. They had the cross. We had guys and Roman soldiers and the women folk, and we're wailing. And I dragged that cross down Hollywood Boulevard to an empty lot. Yeah. And then they pretended I got nailed up and thrown up on the cross while they preached the gospel.
Wow!
And it was a spectacle. And of course, it brought people in. And then we would share the gospel with them. And they were clever, and they make for a fun memory. But I'll tell you, nothing had the power more than a one-on-one encounter where you're just talking with somebody who was in the midst of their need.
Yeah, right.
Where they were down on their luck,
Okay, so then you hit a season where, how does this end? How did this play out?
We grew up.
Yeah.
Yeah, what really started knocking the wheels off is that we all started to get a little older, and people started getting married, and then they had little kids, and they needed their privacy, and living in a commune wasn't going to work.
Yeah.
And people are the kind of jobs that we did at the beginning were very low skill, manual labor type jobs like service master, janitor work, gardening businesses. In fact, the business I'm working in right now is a descendant of a vinyl repair business that we did to support the home.
You learned a trade there.
Yeah, but eventually these things start to pull you away and they start to customize and accessorize your life to the point where you no longer shared that common communal mission. Right. And since those days, I've thought many, many times, I wish we could do that again, but I don't know if it would ever be the same because the culture has moved on. The typical street person you have now, 2023, these homeless people, that wasn't who you had back in those days.
Okay, let me throw this out there. I don't want to get myself in trouble here or come off the wrong. If you look at the movement back then, you're talking about hippies rolling in, brokenhearted, this and that. I would really say the people who checked themselves out and were somewhat disenfranchised of that day, and they just gathered, and then they lived this sold out life, right? In this. If I think about it today, and my heart hopes there's a revival today. I pray for that. I don't know for sure, but I hope. I'm talking a mass revival,
Right.
If you think about who, what's the equivalent of the checked out hippies and the disenfranchised hippies? If I think about it, you know what it is? It's the whole he, them, it, they gay community.
Yeah.
They've checked out of our way. They rebelled against our way, and they're doing it their way. Wouldn't you say if it's going to come through the disenfranchised again, do you think it would come through that community?
It's possible, but there are many communities like that.
Well, see, that's the thing that's what I was asking you earlier is because the hippie movement, from what I remember, I was very young, but I've seen throughout my life, I've seen documentaries. It was a whole group of people doing the same thing, speaking the same, yelling the same thing out. Now we have diverse groups, anti this, anti that, against this, against that, against each other, together, not together, this right, that's right. It seems like it's more separated, segregated.
Factions.
Yeah.
So it would have to be sweeping all of that. Just like you know how the Black Lives Matter movement. It started however it started, wherever it started, but it swept through the nation. It swept through.
It joined groups together.
It was just walking, just picking up. It would have to be that type where it doesn't matter where you're at right now, is that this is the biggest matter out there right now. And everybody's willing to join.
The reason I think that is because you look at a community, man, our kids today have been sold a huge fat lie.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing in general terms, but they bought into it. And what they bought into is so empty and shallow and lonely and sad. But they're being sold that it's this higher level of thinking, and I'm a free thinker now, and I'm inclusive to everything, and this and that. And it's so empty, though.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where my hope, and I can see people like, hey, I'm done with this, man. This was supposed to be it. Heck, I dyed my hair blue. I mean, here I am. But then they find out, man, this is empty. And that's so sad to come to that realization.
Well,
that's why the media keeps pumping into that lie. If the media ever stop, that includes social media, all those outlets, they ever stop promoting, this thing would grind to a stop in a moment.
I have noticed something, though. In the business that I'm in as a contractor, the clients that I have right now, a lot of them are millennials.
Sorry about that. Social media.
Social media, yeah.
A lot of the clients are millennials that are employed by these places, and I do a lot of the work downtown. So a lot of them live out there, and I get to know them really good. And you know what? I used to have, I judged wrong, and I thought these kids were just not good. But I've shared a lot, and they've shared a lot with me. I've gotten to know a lot of them. And it seems that right out of high school, all the way up until your late 20s is where all this stuff is happening. But a lot of the new 30-year-olds, 31-year-olds, I've even met some 29-year-olds where that's gotten old. And they're starting to realize, man, I better start doing something because this is not going to cut it. Just working at Starbucks or just making a little money just to go out and have dinner and drinks with friends. They're at that, because I talk to a lot of them and they're like, yeah, man, the dating scene and all that. And they're even talking about these kids nowadays, but they're very young.
They're young too, yeah.
But see, I'm noticing that they're young 29, young 30, and they're kind of like getting over this.
Yeah.
And they're looking for something. The thing is it affects them media-wise too, because, they're looking for something, they're looking for it. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So I feel that if something like this was to happen, a revival like you're saying, I think majority would be from those ages and some probably
When you say on, you mean down younger? Or?
No, from like maybe late 20s and up is who would really take a hold of that. But I think that by that happening can also draw in, like he was draw in some of the younger ones.
I think it does automatically. You get a movement like that and people are drawn.
But I'll tell you, it's a vain hope to look for the great movement, the great revival. You can't look for that.
No.
What has to happen is you have to have a personal revival inside your own heart. And forget about the mass.
Yeah.
If you're a cat that's trying to find where the parade is and then get out in front of it, you're going to waste your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And none of that hippie stuff happened because, let's all, we all checked in our social media and found out there was a mass hippie movement happening. Let's all sign up. Didn't happen that way. It happened organically, one person at a time.
Yeah.
Right.
It just so happened that it seemed to strike all these young people at the same time. So something like that could happen, but don't look for it.
I'm just hoping. My hope is because I see how empty what this world is offering our kids today, and all the different flavors it has. It's so empty and so sad. I'm hoping people even watching this will sit there and say, man, I need something better. I need something just like you guys had that moment, whatever it came from. But I really hope that takes root in their heart, because I've always taken comfort that however crazy it gets, we have the truth of Christ in us. Right. And that's everything. And that's everything.
It can't be a lifestyle choice. It can't be, the words you just used, that they want something more, something different, as if it's a menu. Like, there's the world here, and then we can go the Christian menu. I'll select from that side of the menu. It's not a lifestyle to want. It's like wherever you are, no matter how deeply committed you are into that one path, and suddenly you're waking up and I've had that sex change, I've had the surgery done, and suddenly the light comes on this is not it. Yeah. Wherever that is. You're in prison somewhere and you might be tuning in on the prison library and catching this little podcast, and you've already done some things that can't be undone. Wherever you're at, it's looking inside and saying, God, renew my stony heart. Yeah. Give me a new heart. Give me a new heart and make me erupt like a volcano right where I'm at, right in the midst of the people that I've gathered around me. And if you do that and that catches on, a revival could come from the whole prison. Yeah. Right? A revival could come from that whole gay disco thing where everybody's in trance. They could all come shouting for the Lord. And here's the kicker. Whatever that looks like, it might be so offensive to me as an old hippie as we were offensive to all the pew sitters back in our day.
Yeah.
I just have to say, Lord, roll. It's your thing, not mine.
Yeah, you know what? If we had a house where, hey, anyone just float in, float out, I'd be like, hey, that's not safe. Hey, that dude's using drugs and that's church property. Like here comes the crusty old dude in me.
It's a hard thing to swallow. The thing about the movie, The Jesus Revolution, it's a Hollywood production. Mm-hmm. Nobody should think that they're going to get saved by watching that movie,
right?
Because they shaved off elements of the truth. Mm-hmm. Lonnie Frisbee was a very complicated guy, very powerful, but he has a very dark and twisted background.
But that's part of what drove me to the story. I love his complication of his life.
Yeah, well, look him up. Anybody that was just watching the movie, they wouldn't be aware of any of the complication, but he was...
Right. No, see, I was part of the Vineyard movement early on. I remember, he was removed, and there was questions. No one talked about it, but there was questions on why he was removed and this and that.
Right.
But that's what drove me to the movie, and I love that the movie just didn't go down the rah happy note. It showed the movement kind of take a turn for Calvary Chapel, and then they had their struggles and even their splits. It's okay because church is complicated. Church welcomes messy people.
And if you really do a deep dive into how things actually happen, then you'll see how the movie poured a lot of grace, did a lot of soft focus on a lot of those moments. Because you never know. You never want to know how the sausage is made, and you never want to know how a church is actually run.
But in fairness, that messiness was so complicated, the movie would have had to been 10 hours long. You know what I mean? Yeah, there's only so much you can do. But I love that it's complicated because life's complicated.
My takeaway from that is that what amazed me is that, look, this guy, Lonnie, said, I'm going to go forward and I'm going to spread the gospel, even though I know I'm carrying this horrible baggage with me. Even though I know I haven't solved the puzzle.
Right.
I'm fighting a battle, I'm fighting a war my whole life long, but I'm not winning every battle. Right. Nevertheless, I'm not going to stand down. I'm still going to step up forward and say, the Lord wants to heal you, because it's not Lonnie healing, it's the Lord doing it. And that boldness, if that boldness infects a generation, despite whatever hangups they've had, whatever messes they're dragging along with them, that's where you get a movement.
Yeah.
That's where the energy rises up, and it just hits a crescendo, and it'll change an entire generation.
Seems like God's always drawn to use the most broken of us.
Yes,
it's been like that since the beginning.
Yeah, I was going to say, Moses.
Yeah.
Moses murdered a man with his hands.
Yeah.
I mean, he had a temper. They think he had a speech impediment. I love that.
Samson, the narcissist.
Yeah.
Gideon, the coward.
Yeah.
David, the sexual predator, murderer.
Right? And yet God uses these, but that's motivating to me, because I tend to condemn myself a lot. Like, man, I should be. No, God uses the broken.
Yeah.
And I think that's beautiful.
That even gives you, for me, it gives me, it lights the fire even bigger, because I'm thinking, okay, well, I'm this broken down, sinful man, but God will use me.
I could play.
Yeah.
I could play. Yeah, exactly. I love that. I want to be sensitive to the time. But moving on to, do you think in this day and age, that kind of environment of these flop houses and stuff, would that be a good idea for the church to get out, break out of the building and be more accessible?
Yeah, I've got a compound answer to that question. Yes, it's always good when the church does something good. And our church, to their credit, that's part of your pedigree. And a lot of that comes right through you personally. The pedigree of the food ministry that we've had, of having an eye towards people that are homeless, people that are in need. Yeah. A lot of that is rolled. That's got Rick Rivera's brand on those boxes. Yeah. Okay. But at the same time, you don't want to get too hung up on, let's get something so the church does this. Like, this institution will do this big heroic thing. It has to come down personal.
Yeah.
Personal.
It's got to be you personally. What am I personally going to do? And I'll give you just a little thing that happened a couple of days ago. California's been freezing and been cold and rainy, and the snow's buried the mountains.
Yeah.
I came up to my shop, came around through the alley, and this guy, that's a homeless guy, who walks around the neighborhood. He actually encounters James a lot as he walked around the front of my shop. He's sitting there in the rain. So I pull up and I roll the window and say, what happened? You want to get warmed up? He goes, yeah, So I brought him into my shop, put all my space heaters on him, let him sit there, get dried out, get warmed up. And, you got to stay someplace. So I have a little Astro van that is a work van, and it was just parked in my shop because my other guy is away on a mission trip for a month. So I drove that in the front of the shop, left it there, showed him how to open the sliding door, threw some foam and a bunch of packing blankets in there. So we'd have a warm and a dry place to sleep at night if he needed it. Yeah. As it turned out, he ended up making a call from my shop, and he got a friend down in another city to take him in for a couple of days. But you got to do that. Yeah. You got to seize the moments that come to you.
Yeah.
Those little particular moments, especially the ones that nobody sees. Right. Nobody's going to notice you. Nobody's going to say, "Yay, well done."
And last night we had this project over the weekend. We worked close to 40 hours in 2 days. We were there from sun up to sundown, right? And it's right on 7th Street in Alameda. We're by 6th Street in LA. If anybody that knows 6th Street in LA, it's a really bad place. So it's a gated school, and we have to come in, open this big old gate, and there's a lot of homeless that are walking there. This little old guy is standing right in front of the gate, and I have a big truck, and I'm pulling up like that, and I'm just waiting on him. Little old guy, and he's trying to light a cigarette with another cigarette, and I just kind of honk, and I say, "Excuse me," and then he moved over, and I got out of the truck to open the gate. The minute I got out of the truck, he goes, "Excuse me," and I go, "Yes, sir." He goes, "Your heart is bigger than that truck you're driving." He quoted scripture and prayed over me.
Yeah.
And he had a cart full of stuff, all dirty, and he started telling me, we're the ones that are chosen to make a difference in this world. he started talking to me and I was like, oh my God, man. So what I do a lot in downtown, I've been doing it for years, is I carry change or sometimes food, whatever. And I'm looking for people. And I say, Lord, send me one, send me someone.
Yeah.
I'll either pray with them, I'll feed them, I'll give them some money. But I've never ran across someone with drug problems. It's always been somebody that's hungry, either for the prayer or for food.
Right.
And it's just like you said, this is something in my heart that I keep saying, Lord, I want to do something more. I want, and when you talk about the Jesus movement, the revival, when I hear you say the things that you experience, it's like, man,
You're thinking about your house, aren't you?
Well, I'm thinking about opening, or
awesome.
getting a building or something, because I would love to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would, and it's not because so it makes me be a better Christian or God will be happy with me. God is happy. God loves me. Yeah. But it's because I have that heart of come and taste what I have tasted. I want to share that with you because it's so good. It's like when you have lunch and you bring it to your workers, and it's like, here, guys, you feed them because you're so grateful that they're doing what they're doing for you. Yeah. You don't bring them a McDonald's burger. At least I don't. I bring them good food on the weekends when they're, and everybody's like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to bring the food to them and just feed them.
Yeah. I'll tell you where I've encountered this. It blew my mind how close this reminded me of my gospel outreach days. It's the Green Oak Ranch down in Vista.
Yeah.
It's a place where people go and camp, have retreats. Yeah. But they have a rehab facility, and they have a bunch of guys that are there that work maintaining the property as part of their rehab. But every day, it's that full immersion. Every day we wake up to worship the Lord. Every day we do our work. We do our work and we sing songs of the Lord, encouraging one another as we're laboring. Yeah. And in the evening, we have our meal, giving worship to God, and then getting a Bible study that might reveal something you never even thought of before. Then going to sleep that night amongst your brothers and waking up the next day. Mm-hmm. That was gospel outreach. And this is happening most often in these rehab places. Yeah. And you're dealing with guys that are desperate for a change in their life. They're not playing around. They're not goofing off and pretending to be in church. It's life and death for them to get a hold of God because that's what's going to rescue them.
Right.
So maybe something like that leads the way. You just never know.
All right. Well, guys, unfortunately, we're at the end of the time, but walkaways, revival doesn't have to happen on a large scope. Yeah. It can happen in your bedroom.
In your heart.
With yourself, right? This world sells you a lot of counterfeit stuff, and the only thing that will really touch your soul and give you satisfaction and purpose of life is Jesus Christ. And to move in that and grasp and hold on to that, even hold on to it desperately, is a good thing, Any closing thought from my brothers?
Each one of us is you shed some light and put something into perspective, and you're right. And I never thought about it because I always think in the masses, all these people to help and all these people to be around. But it puts it in perspective for me in this way. I think we're all a group of so much goodness that we can give, obviously from the Lord through us, for others, because one of us can make a huge difference. If it was to happen that we get together, a lot of us, how much can we do, right?
Right.
But it shouldn't be measured by the group. You should know that God gives you and equips you with the amount, whether it's some of us are a little bit, some of us are a lot. I don't know. Everybody's different. He has a different agenda for each one of us. But we're all equipped to be able to speak to a small group of two. One.
Yeah.
Right.
That's revival.
Right.
That's making a difference.
Yeah.
And if it was to happen in a large group, I hope that I'm a part of it, man.
I want in too.
I would love to be right in the middle of that.
Small or large, I want in.
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah.
That's where my heart's at.
Yeah. So that was a good word. That was good.
Yeah.
Any closing thoughts, Chris?
Man. Lord, you got to grab hold of everybody's heart who's listening right now to our little podcast. It's no accident you're there listening to the words that we're speaking. God
That's right.
anointed this time for you.
Thank you, Lord.
Because you were being called to be a hero of your generation.
Yes.
And the way that happens is when you stand your ground You put your hands up in the air and you become a lightning rod that
Yes.
God's Holy Spirit can strike and then go out in all directions.
Thank you.
And if enough of you do this and you infect your friends with that same passion, eventually you have a forest of lightning rods.
Yes.
And then the world starts to change.
Yes.
And that's what I pray, Father. I just pray that each one of them takes this message to heart and then goes away in secret where nobody can watch, nobody can see what's happening, and they put their heart before you. Yeah. And say, God, please do that in my life.
The Lord
Your revival will not come from the past.
That's right.
It'll come from the future.
That's right. That's right. The Lord put something in my heart right now. It's just to say, rise up, warriors. Rise up.
Yes, God.
Rise up.
Yes, Father.
Step up. Alrighty. Well, guys, thank you very much. I really, and Chris, appreciate you sharing your story.
Yeah.
I knew you'd be comfortable with it. I'm glad you're comfortable with that. And I just think it's such a neat story. I thought the movie was great. I would highly recommend it.
Yeah, go see it.
Yeah.
It's a trip.
Yeah. And that's it for this time, guys. Thank you for joining us. God bless you. And we'll see you in the next one.